Music Teacher Chat. I am so excited to have a special guest today. I'm going to announce her in just a moment. Before I do that, if you're joining us and you're not sure about the schedule, maybe you missed this one live and you're watching on the replay, these are the times that we are going live for the foreseeable future. So we've got Monday at 2 p.m, Wednesday at 3 p.m, and Friday at 2 p.m. Those are in Dublin time, so do the time zone conversion if you need to for your local area. And if you need access to Vibrant Music Teaching right now, if you need some online game resources, if you need some tutorials, we have all of that, and we have a special coupon going at the moment to get people access who need it. So the coupon code is online, and you can sign up at vibrantmusicteaching.com. Now, good to see several of you live already. Chime in with your questions and queries. We have a very special guest, someone I've known for a little while, and I've been reading her blog and absolutely loving her stuff, and I'm delighted to bring her on. Her name is Janna Carlson, and she's from Studio Rocket Web Design, and I just know you guys are going to love her. So, please welcome... Oh, I should have my applause button. I'm going to get that for next time. But please welcome Janna Carlson. Great to have you here, Janna.
It's great to be with you, Nicola. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. So, Janna, tell me what your studio looks like right now, because you've gone through a few transitions. Even before all of us were making all these big changes to online teaching, you had changed some things around. So what's been going on with you?
So a year ago, I had a fairly good-sized group piano studio and about 55 students. And last summer, my husband and I moved across the country, and the plan was to start over. I ended up, instead of starting a new studio across the country, I kept about 9 or 10 of my students from my previous studio and converted them to online lessons. And so this year, I have been doing a bit less teaching than before, but definitely diving into the world of online lessons and experiencing those challenges that I was not prepared for early on. But it's been really rewarding, and I've retained all of those students. In fact, I gained one along the way, a sibling, and it's been really rewarding. So my studio was online all year.
Wow. Okay, so you're ahead of the game. Tell me, how did you get started with your online lessons in terms of the tech and stuff? And where are you at now? Have things changed over time?
They've changed a bit. I had some trouble. There were some great resources out there, but I had some trouble finding the resources at first. I had to do more digging than I thought I would to figure out what a setup might look like and what to be prepared for as far as possible glitches and how to feed a second camera view in, just things that felt like they should be really basic. I struggled to find that information. And so actually once I found a really good collection of resources, and they were absolutely out there, I put them all together in a blog post. In fact, I believe that you've shared that blog post since then. And so over time, I have kind of tweaked things, but for the most part, it stayed really simple. I don't go very deep into tech, and so keeping it simple was the best way for me to just stay sane as I was teaching online, to not feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a mantra that a lot of people can appreciate right now.
Right.
KISS, right? Keep it simple. Silly, let's
Exactly.
say.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was the biggest thing you had to change when you made the switch to online teaching? I mean, apart from the fact that you were switching from groups to
hmm
one-on-one, because you
Yes.
made that change along with the online aspect, but what specifically to the online lesson aspect, what do you feel was the biggest shift for you?
I didn't realize it when I was starting, but it became really apparent a few weeks in that my expectations were maybe a bit misaligned in the beginning, and I had to let go of a lot of those. I somehow expected that because technology has come so far in recent years that it would look and sound like I was in the same room as my student. And of course, that's not the case, as we have all discovered. um, and I think after the first few weeks, I was able to sort of adjust to this new normal in teaching, and the same idea that had guided me all along through any change in my studio, the goal that my students would just love music and love playing, whether that was for themselves or for family and friends, that again came front and center for me. And I had to let go of certain other expectations for what I was seeing and hearing. And once I did that, I think I was able to relax more during my teaching and during my communication with my students. And it just made the biggest difference. So I'm not sure if that's specific enough, but that was the biggest thing for me that had to change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something we all need to come back to again and again, I think, and reteach ourselves about, realign ourselves. So, Janet, I wanted to get you on here partially because you obviously are ahead of us when it comes to online teaching, and I think it's very reassuring already for teachers to hear that you've still kept it simple and that you're continuing to do that and you've had success with that. But I also wanted to get you on here because of this whole other side of what you do, which is about helping people with their studio websites. I strongly believe that every teacher should have a website set up for their studio, and I love the work that you do getting them set up. In fact, we just had a lovely comment from Music Speak Studio is the YouTube name, but they say Janna is awesome. Her team did my site and I'm so happy with it. So you've got one happy customer in the comments already, which is awesome. Tell me, have you seen a lot of teachers suddenly wanting to set up their website recently? Has there been a spike in demand or in people wanting to redesign?
There's definitely more of a sense of urgency that I'm hearing with teachers. Um, it's been really enjoyable to work with teachers during this season in particular because teachers are being really proactive right now, and they're thinking about what's coming and how to adapt and how to thrive. And it's been really rewarding to be part of that. And the website projects we've worked on recently and the teachers we've worked with recently have just been fantastic. And it's been so rewarding to see sort of their goals at the start of the project and what they're set up to do at the end of the project.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Music Speak Studio clarified it's Ruthie Smith. Maybe you already knew that.
Yes, yes. Hi, Ruthie.
It's one of the interesting things with YouTube. You get all sorts of usernames to decipher.
Right.
Awesome. So if people watching have any questions that you want to put to Janna about websites and studio websites and that kind of stuff, feel free to add them in. I wanted to talk a little bit about marketing, Janna, because you've written some great posts about this recently, specifically about marketing online and how teachers are trying to find new opportunities within this new lesson landscape that we all find ourselves in. And I think it's great that people want to look at sort of the plus side and try and find the good opportunities in these circumstances, shall we say.
Yeah.
So do you think teachers should be upping their game when it comes to their website? Should this be a time when we need to update our studio website? Do you think that's an important factor right now?
I do. I think it is important. I think that the way we're doing business and the way that we are finding business is rapidly changing. And it had already been online. You know, we've all heard, have a website, have a web presence. But with the absence of things like play dates and school pickups and the way that people have conversations with each other, it's really shifted. And now it's all online. And we have more options online than ever before. And I think that's probably only going to increase. And so any investment that you make in in working on your presence online and connecting with families online, I think is only going to help you. And I think it is more important than ever before. It gives you the greatest range of options, right?
Right.
For what you want to do and how you want to grow in the future. You are not hindered at all by the lack of ability to be found.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so if a teacher is watching right now and they do not have a website at all, what would you recommend they do to get one set up?
We are always happy to speak with them. but if a teacher has some time and the inclination to build their own website, we love Squarespace for doing that. Websites are really easy to use. They look clear and professional, and Squarespace is secure. It's our favorite. It's our favorite website building platform. You also have a great course in Tim Topham's.
Oh, yeah.
I might need you to help me a little bit here. In Tim Topham's Inner Circle, you have a website building course that's also available, and I've heard great things about that. And that's on WordPress. Is that correct?
So that's the studio online studio launchpad that's inside Top Music Pro, as we now call it.
Got it.
And yeah, people can set up a website using WordPress using that. We also have something coming out in VMT soon. So there's lots of options out there. The main thing is just find something that works for you, I would say, for all the teachers, and go forward from there. There'll be some great questions added here. Joy K just asked about, can you give us an idea of what you charge to create websites for piano teachers? So maybe, Janna, if you can direct them to a page on your site or some information, where could they find out how much it actually costs?
Yeah, so you can do a little bit of searching around the internet for small business, for website designers who work specifically with small businesses, and that's what we do. We work with music studios. The cost really depends on what you need your website to do for you and how extensive it needs to be. So we are the best way to figure that out is to just have a conversation about your goals and figure that out. But absolutely, you can look around our website. It's studiorocketwebdesign.com. And I have a couple of blog posts specifically addressing what you should expect when working with a web designer. And those also give you a range of costs that you can expect.
That's great. Awesome. Linda Gaines also asked about, she said, I started working on my own website and then gave up and set one up on My Music Staff, you know, their inbuilt thing. So should I retry to do an independent website that has an easier web address? What do you think about that? Do you think the My Music Staff one is sufficient, Janna, or do you think it's better to have an independently self-hosted one or set up outside of that?
Nicola, I think you had a really good point just a minute ago when you said, find what works for you. I think the very first consideration is what works for you. And so if you already have a web presence with My Music Staff, and building a new website or hiring someone to build a new website is just not something that you can do right now, then by all means, you've got a web presence. You can focus on improving it. I would always recommend having a specific domain for your website that's not at My Music Staff. It's easier to be found. It's better for your SEO, just all around. However, a web presence of any kind is better than no web presence right now, especially.
For sure, definitely. So if people already have a website set up and they're reasonably happy with it, what are some improvements they could be thinking about making? Maybe in terms of the content or what pages are essential? What maybe are some of the pitfalls that you see teachers falling into that you think are easy improvements for them to make?
Yeah. I think probably the biggest thing that I see that teachers could benefit from is choosing one specific goal for your website, one thing you want every visitor to do, and then make sure that your entire website focuses on that single goal. That's not to say you can't talk about other things or share your bio with people, but it should be so clear when someone arrives at your website that that there are 5 easy steps to enroll in your studio, or that they can download this free PDF guide for 5 ways to enjoy music with your child at home, during the stay-at-home season. And in exchange, you get their email address and you're building your email list. There should be one main goal, and that should be really clear when people get to your website. So I would say the biggest temptation is to try to share a lot of information on our websites with the general public. And I think we lose people really quickly because our attention span is just growing shorter and shorter. And parents have so much on their plates right now. We all do. And so just making it really clear and simple for every parent who arrives at your website, or every potential student, to know, this is the one thing that I should do if I'm interested in music lessons.
Yeah, no, that's so solid. And that goes through absolutely every part of the site, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I look at a teacher's website, and I've done reviews of them and stuff, that's really what I'm coming back to again and again, is your goal is not clear enough here. Your goal is not clear enough over here.
Right.
That's what it comes back to again and again. In thinking of goals, Laurie asked this great question. She said, is a website strictly for marketing? Could one be made for the current students to go on and see what's new, to share things like links, games, etc.? Do you think there's value in that, or do you think websites are most valuable as a marketing tool?
I think it all depends on your goals. I think a website can be almost like your administrative assistant. I think there is no reason why a website can't make your life so much easier, while at the same time getting you new students. To have a separate section of your website where your students can log into My Music Staff, or follow a PayPal link to pay tuition, or you share resources with them, that's fantastic. Or even have a blog for them. I just think it depends on your goals and being really clear about what those are. And so when I say there should be one clear goal on your website, that's not to say your website can't perform several very valuable functions. Yeah. Do you use your studio website in a similar way? What kinds of things do you do on your website, if you don't mind me asking?
No, not at all. I'm just laughing because we're talking about one goal and my website has to do so many jobs. Because it's still split between things for teachers and things for students. So all I can do is make that as clear as possible. So like literally on the home page, it says, I want to teach or I want to learn, right? Like that. So that I can make it as clear as possible where people are going. But yes, I use in terms of the studio side of things, it is mostly for marketing. It's information for prospective students. Although current students, I have a few current students who read my teaching blog and stuff, so, people can go all over the place. But it's about knowing your intent, I think, behind each area or behind each page.
I agree. So I think what we keep coming back to is having clear goals, right?
Exactly.
And it's not to say you can't accomplish several different things on your website, but being really clear about it and leaving no doubt in people's minds when they arrive at your website where to go to take the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And just having that goal and that intent behind each page means that things like calls to action, having clear buttons and all of that just comes from that naturally. And you don't have to think about it so much, It's just about knowing where you want people to go at every stage and sending them there. Colin asked a question. I'm not sure if you're going to know the answer. No worries if not. I don't really. He said, I have a website built on WordPress. Bluehost are trying to sell me security against bot attacks. And other than keeping WordPress and plugins up to date, what can I do to secure the site? Do you know anything about bot attacks? That sounds like Bluehost can be a bit funny, so I kind of think that sounds like a weird Bluehost upsell to me, but I don't have first-hand experience with it.
I agree. It sounds like an upsell, but I don't have the personal experience or knowledge of that. Yeah. The only thing I know to do is to keep your plugins updated.
Yeah, keep your plugins updated. There's certainly more advanced security options you can look into that I would have on my sites, Colin, but I wouldn't think you need them on a studio website in general. I mean, I'm talking about protecting a lot more resources than the average studio website would. But you can certainly look into specific security plugins for stuff like that if you're protecting more sensitive content. But beyond that, I would say it's Bluehost trying to sell you something. Probably.
That would be my guess.
Yeah. Okay, there's a whole other side to some of your recent blogs, Janna, that has been really interesting. In particular, I saw one recently where you were talking about marketing your studio globally and how teachers have some teachers are thinking, oh my gosh, this is my chance. I'm teaching online. I can market to the whole world now, right? I can reach everyone. And how maybe that's not such a good idea. Can you share some of your thoughts around marketing right now?
Sure. I actually had some really interesting feedback on that blog post, and people were helpful in reminding me that there is another side to this. And I think that at the end of the day, it really does come down again to your goals for your studio. And I think this is the time to be creative and resourceful and also really clear about where you want your studio to go.
Yes.
We're kind of functioning with some limited information right now, right? We don't really know what's coming. All we know is that things are unlikely to go back to normal, the way they were 6 months ago, and things may look different for many studios in the future. And so as we're thinking about where to go from here, I think it's a great time to take a step back and think, what do I really want to do? What do I have to offer that's really unique and that brings me joy and brings my students joy? And then focus on that one thing. And so when I was in my recent blog post, I talked about some really great reasons to not market globally, to market locally. And I think the sentiment that was really behind that for me was that if you have suddenly lost 5 students and you just need to fill those spots, or you want to grow your studio by a little bit, but more or less do what you're doing now, it's a great time to connect with your warm market, that term that sort of refers to the folks maybe a step outside of your immediate circle, but with whom you've already probably built a little bit of trust. They've heard about you or they know your studio families. And it's much easier to get students from a group of people who have already heard of you and already know you're a reputable teacher than to start from scratch with a huge market who's never heard of you and doesn't know why on earth they would choose you over the 500 other search results for online piano lessons. However, big caveat to that, again, it comes down to your goals. If you find that you're loving online piano teaching and you think, I am really enjoying working with, say, teen students learning pop music online. This is just really motivating me, and I think I want to do more of this. Then double down on that. Get really clear that you want to work. You want to be the go-to teacher online for teen students who want to play pop music. And then make your website all about how you are the best teacher for a teenager who wants to play online pop music online, and go that direction. So just be really specific. And if you do expand your market, more power to you. That's fantastic. Just be really clear about what you offer and why people would be drawn to you.
Yes, so true. And so important to remember not to do things just because you can or because you should. I come back to that with so many things that teachers ask about or start looking into. And you need to keep in mind where you actually want to go. If you don't want to have a studio that's 100 students that you see back to back all day, don't make that studio, Whereas I think we can just chase student numbers and income, and you need to step back and say, what do I want to make? Who do I want to teach? What do I actually like doing? Those basic questions that we don't always pause and ask ourselves. So if you, like you say, if you love teaching teens, then pursue that. Go after that, and maybe that's globally or maybe it's just locally, but it's about finding the students that you love to work with or the styles that you love to teach, finding your distinct style as a teacher, I think.
I couldn't agree more.
Um, Great. We have some wonderful questions coming through. Sarah said, how far to market is a good question. I feel like perhaps online students from far away would be less inclined to commit over the long term. I'm thinking about selling lesson packages. Sarah, I think what I would advise there is, yes, sell those packages if that's part of your overall studio plan and, again, goals as a teacher. Don't just offer that, or also do that if you right now need the income and that's a way to get it. That's perfectly legitimate too. But don't just do things just because you could, is what I would say about something like that. What do you think, Janna?
I agree. I I also love the creativity, Sarah. Um, I think that there are going to be so many really cool ideas that come out of this season for all of the challenges and all of the sort of the scariness, with not knowing. I get really excited anytime I see a teacher come up with an idea, particularly that I had not thought of already. So kudos to you for thinking of a really creative solution to that. I think a benefit to that would also be that you get to see if you enjoy working with that student if you're only selling one package at a time. And particularly as we approach summer,
Yeah,
I
I
think
was
that
just
could
thinking
be,
that. Yeah.
yeah, that could be a great way to, especially if all of your current students are planning on enrolling in lessons in the summer and you've got some extra time. And like Nicola's saying, you need a little bit extra income over the summer. That's a great way, I think, to approach that. But yeah, I agree that I think it comes down to what your goals are and what you really want to be doing in your studio.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We have a wonderful question from Emily here, who's kind of on the other side of what we were talking about. Any tips for teen teachers? I've been teaching for 2 years and playing for 11 years, but because I'm a teen, it gets hard to prove to some people that I'm a qualified teacher. So she's not talking about teaching teens, she is a teen. And I just wanted to bring that up because I started at 15, so
Mm.
myself, so I do know what it feels like. People definitely don't take you as seriously. From my perspective, Emily, the main thing is to take yourself as seriously as possible. That's the best thing you can do. So you have a website that, looks professional and put together. You have policies. You do everything as business-like almost as you can. And that will convey to people that you take yourself seriously and they will take you more seriously because of it. It definitely is a struggle, though. I know, and maybe you found this too, even as a slightly younger teacher, Jan, if you didn't start as a teen, that people, with age, it does get a little bit easier to get people to obey your rules and follow your guidelines and all of that stuff. Did you find that, Janna?
I did. I started teaching at 17. So right there with you.
Yeah.
And I always looked a lot younger than I was. And it was very difficult all the way through my 20s to get families to take me seriously, to get parents to respect my policies. But to be fair, I didn't have policies for a while because I was a teenager. So I agree. I think have your policies be as business-like as possible. And I think what you'll find is that it's a little bit easier with people who don't know you ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe people who have known you, especially, have seen you grow up, are going to have a harder time listening to your policies and respecting those than people who don't know you. And when their first impression of you is a professional one, you'll probably have an easier time making your policies stick. But hang in there.
Yeah,
You have an
absolutely.
easier time with your web presence than a lot of us do, right?
That's true. Yeah, for sure. Like, I think there's a combination of things. Most of us have poor policies or no policies when we're younger, and also people are taking us less seriously. So if you at least alleviate one of those aspects, Emily, I think you'll be doing better than most of us did when we were teens. Okay, we need to start wrapping up already. Oh my gosh, time has flown, Janna. There's a couple more
Yeah.
things I wanted to ask you about, though, and I do want to fit them in because I loved a recent article that you wrote about job security. And you said in that article that we don't just have one employer as teachers. What did you mean by that?
I think it's really easy to panic when 5 students quit or when, I mean, 25% of our our studio takes a break. And the thing that I come back to as a piano teacher is that rather than having one employer who has the power to fire us and remove all of our income instantly, we have 20 employers or 55 employers, and a few of them may fire us, but the chances of everyone firing us at the same time is pretty much non-existent. And so I think that's, if you have 40 students and you lose, say, 10, that is really hard. It is really hard to suddenly lose 25% of your income. But you can make that back up and you have a very low risk of losing 100% of your income. And I think that's about as good job security as we can possibly ask for right now. That's, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I keep coming back to that myself as I look around at all, thankfully everyone is okay, but friends and family and just people around generally, we're one of the luckiest professions right now in this current circumstance, because we do have so many different employers that we're insulated to some degree from them losing their income if that's happening and they're having to quit lessons and all of that. So we are in an extremely privileged position in that respect. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about, Janna, was just a quote from a recent article, which you said, "Taking care of you is not optional. It will help you remain a happy, calm teacher over the next few months." And I thought that was a great note to finish on, and such wise words of wisdom. So, what are some things that you've found important for keeping your own energy up in online lessons? Because I know a lot of teachers really are feeling quite drained right now. And part of it is just a natural part of switching so many things at once, right? And that is draining, and it's so much newness to learn about. And that does make things tiring. But there is a special tiredness that comes from online lessons as well, I believe. So how have you managed that as you've been teaching online yourself?
It's a great question. And I guess it comes down to small things, the small things that I've implemented. I take frequent 15-minute breaks and I stand up and walk around and get a snack and refill my water glass. I give myself a little bit of breathing room throughout the day, and that is not optional for me. I try to exercise regularly. It doesn't sound like a very original or helpful idea, but it makes a really big difference in the health of my back when I'm sitting for hours. And it also helps with my energy and my mood. It goes far. A couple of months ago, I ended up splitting. I had just one day of online lessons. I have no exhaustion compared to most teachers right now. I had one full day of online lessons, and because of some circumstances, I ended up splitting that into 2 days. And I was just doing that temporarily. But then I could not believe the difference in how I felt about teaching and in my energy. And I know that that's a luxury that a lot of teachers don't have, but if you can at all, I think spacing out your lessons rather than, a few punishingly long days, if there's any way to split those up, it just makes a huge difference in our own mental health, our own emotional health, and in the energy we're able to bring to each lesson. So I would say those are the things. And then again, going back to one of your earliest questions, expectations. I think when we hold ourselves and our students to really high expectations during a time like this, it doesn't allow us to breathe and enjoy what we're doing. And just the ability to enjoy and be in the moment with our students is so valuable. And I think that maybe that's the biggest thing, if we can possibly do that. There are days when that's not possible, but if we're able to start working that into our teaching and just remembering to give ourselves grace, to breathe, to give our students grace, we'll stay healthy and happy, or as much as we possibly can right now.
Yes, absolutely. letting go of some of those expectations is a huge one, especially in certain areas. You're not going to be able to teach sight reading as effectively when you're
Right.
suddenly thrown into online lessons. So just let it go. It's okay. You'll pick it up later when you're able for it. Focus more on ear training right now, or examples like that. And yes, absolutely the value in breaks and also in getting away from your screen during the day. If you can't
Hmm.
have shorter stretches of teaching, if your whole afternoon does have to be teaching every day, as it basically does for me, take the effort to get outside and get your breaks earlier in the day, because if you let yourself sit on a screen all morning and then you're on the screen all afternoon, it's hard. And it's also hard to be sitting for this long. That's the biggest struggle I've found, which sounds ridiculous, but when I'm teaching in person, I can get up and move around and walk over there, and I'm not moving a ton, but I'm up and down a little bit, and it's been a big difference to just sit all day. So yeah, that's a huge one. All right, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Janna. Please, once again, tell us your website. Where can people find your fantastic blog, and more about how they can get a website set up for themselves?
Absolutely. StudioRocketWebDesign.com is our website, and my blog is right there. It's easy to find, and I would love to hear feedback, even from today, from the things we talked about. I really love hearing from teachers, and if we didn't get to a question today, feel free to reach out. I'd love to help. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you, Nicola. I really appreciate you inviting me today.
Oh, absolutely. We're delighted to have you. Thank you to everyone who's watching live and on the replay. Feel free to shoot through questions for Janna, and I'll make sure they get to her. And I will be back here again on Friday with another special guest. So I'll see you all then. Bye, guys.